Okay, folks, it's your buddy Mike Messier. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Did I say that right? Is that how it goes? Does it go Star Wars, The Phantom Menace, Episode 1, re-release, 20 years, I think, 25? My goodness, where does the time go, as they say? At the time, everyone hated this movie. I'm giving it a second look. And I say thumbs up. Surprisingly, I enjoyed this movie now more so than I did as a youth, as a child. I think that the movie kind of ages well. There are some things that don't. But if you haven't seen it, and if you're a Star Wars fan, even a casual Star Wars fan like myself, I'd say go see it. Give it another shot. Jar Jar Binks was, at the time, very disregarded, very hated. I didn't like him. A lot of people didn't like him. Still don't like him. But his involvement seems a little bit less offensive now in some regard, and perhaps more offensive in some regard. And I'll get to that hot topic right now. Some of these voices for some of these characters, the traders, like the guys at the beginning that are trading things and taxing people and all these embargoes and horse shit, they do seem to be... I don't know, just like based on different, what we think of as far as ethnic accents, Middle Eastern perhaps. You know, Jar Jar obviously feels like some type of Caribbean accent that's been stuck into this subservient Jar Jar Binks character, who would really just become subservient because, you know, one of our main guys there, Liam Neeson, I can't remember his fucking character's name. Liam saves his life. That's an interesting shot, too, because another interesting aspect of this thing is, like, kind of the CGI, where the CGI was at when they made this movie, I believe in 1999, and how far it's come. I mean, still, the movie does look great, but there are scenes, for instance, when Jar Jar does get saved. It's obviously, or it looks obviously, like a combination of CGI and backdrop, green screen type of stuff. There's a shot where, like, Jar Jar is standing there with Liam Neeson in the background. Really just looks like a green screen. Very obvious. There are other times in the film when some of the, you know, technologies, as it were, do stand out as just not holding up very well with time. But, you know, look, go back and watch something like the classic Godzilla movies or the King Kong movies from way back when. I mean, they obviously look like... you know, child's puppet shows by comparison to now. And I would say that the early 2000s, even after this movie were made, a lot of the superhero movies looked like shit for a while. The Incredible Hulk, I think they did two. They being whoever the fuck, the producers. There was one with Edward Norton and one with the other guy. And they both looked kind of half-assed. So what can you do? What else? I mean, that's a big change. I mean, we're used to the 70s movies, the 80s movies, Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and of course the original, all had a lot of practical effects, meaning things that were actually there in front of the camera. These, our buddy there, George Lucas, tried to get into other CGI stuff and blah, 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 to use his vision with the tools he had on hand. Natalie Portman, of course, stands up quite well. I mean, I don't know her age back then. Maybe she was 25 or so, but she obviously was at the height of her popularity, her beauty, one might say. Of course, she's always looked younger than she is. And another thing with Natalie Portman is her character. I mean, knowing that in a couple of years they'd be making the follow-up to this one, where her character would kind of be romantically involved with Anakin as he's getting older, and their age difference would be, you know, okay, because they'd both be whatever is the legal age in a galaxy far, far away. But there's these seeds of romance that we have to see in this one. Dare we call it grooming? I mean, by today's standards, you'd call it grooming, but back then, you know, nobody used that term as much, or whatever the fuck. But it's obviously like this poor kid, this Jake Lloyd, not poor kid. I mean, he probably had the time of his life making this movie. But although he's just this, you know, scruffy, you know, ragamuffin kid, kind of like putting, yes, I get it. He's the chosen one. He's Darth Vader. All these things that are going to be in the future. But at the time, he's just this scrappy little never-will-do 8-year-old, 9-year-old. And yet, at the same time, if you're paying attention and you know what's going to happen next in the movies, there's got to be some seeds planted of romance, because that's going to be like the whole big thing for the next one, right? Is his character is going to grow up a few years. You know, the princess or whatever the fuck, Padwin or whatever her name is, she's going to still look great, and they're going to have this big romantic endeavor. And does he use her status to kind of climb up the social ladder? I can't remember, folks. But the point is, in this one, knowing where they're going to go with that, story-wise, you have to plant some seeds, don't you? Of some type of fondness. I mean, they tell each other they care about each other and all this stuff. And yes, in this one, it does seem like, you know, just like a babysitter with a kid. But, I mean, they're planting seeds here, folks. So, I mean, what would you call that by today's 2024 hashtag standards? I don't know. But back then, it is what it fucking is, folks. I mean, it really wouldn't work the other way if this had been an 8 or 9-year-old female character and a, you know, 20-something male character. This movie would not be printed, okay, with these seeds of romance. People would take a lot more interest in that and not tolerate it. But because we know where this movie is headed with the sequel, well, we all know where it's headed now, don't we? But what else? I mean, you know, I do feel like Liam Neeson, it's nice to see him in a movie where he's not 70, you know what I mean? Because I've been watching a lot of these movies with Liam Neeson in the last few years. And these days, he's always like the 70-year-old grandfather who's saving some kid from getting deported or whatever the fuck he's doing, or he's rescuing some teenager from some fucking group. So it's nice to see him in this movie kind of active and moving around and not being grandfatherly and wise. But I guess he is kind of grandfatherly and wise. But here he's more like 45 or 50 instead of 70. Ian McGregor, it seems like he used to be like the real top dog of everything. Like Ian McGregor. Oh, like he was such a big fucking deal in the 90s. Is it me, or is his star faded a bit? Because I can't remember the last time anyone gave a half a shit about Ian McGregor, or though maybe he's on some Netflix show that I don't watch that you do. But I mean, it used to be like Kenneth Branagh. Ooh, Kenneth Branagh's playing Hamlet again. Kenneth Branagh, Ian McGregor, holy shit. And then, you know, they all just faded into the distance, and then we get fucking Ricky Gervais. So it's like, what the fuck? So I don't know what's going on with Ian McGregor, but he used to be the big fucking deal, playing the younger Obi-Wan. Okay. So what else could I say in this movie? I don't know. I mean, it seems like the whole Jar Jar thing, there wasn't just Jar Jar. He had like a whole group of them, like the Guwas or whatever the fucks. And it just seems like none of his folks were really well liked. I mean, like, we know the story that the Ewoks were originally supposed to be a herd of Chewbacca's, but they couldn't afford a herd of Chewbacca suits, so they squished them down and made them cute and adorable. Hence, the fucking Ewoks were born. And I kind of feel like Lucas was trying to strike that again, but because he'd already done, like, the furry little bear thing, he had to go the other way, and he went to like this elongated lizard type of deal with the fucking eyes coming out of his head. And people just didn't like him. You know, people, and I don't know if it was just the voice, if they had done a different voice for Jar Jar. Would he be more acceptable or likable? I don't know. What else? Here's the thing, and folks, I'm not claiming to be Mr. Star Wars aficionado. I'm a fan. I'm not a fanatic, all right? But, I mean, basically with Pawa, whatever the fuck, the Empress, the Princess, whatever she is, how come, like, I get it. She's basically playing grab ass. Like, she's playing her own, she's playing the handmaiden to herself and putting her handmaiden in her spot as a decoy. But at times, it's hard to say because it's both Natalie Portman, right? And at times when she's like the princess in disguise, it seems like whether it's the makeup or they've done something to elongate her face a little bit, whatever it is, she does look a little bit different. But at the same time, it seems like at times the handmaiden is like making all these executive decisions. Now, has the handmaiden who's posing as the actual, whatever the fuck, princess or queen or whatever, Esmeralda, has she been pre-authorized to make these decisions? Because it kind of seems like she's making some decisions on the fly that Portman, if she's the real fucking deal here, as the Pedwa, she's just sitting off on the sidelines, letting her handmaiden, like, wing it. I mean, that's where I get a little bit off-put, because I get it. I like that technique of, like, oh, you know, this is, the handmaiden is the decoy, and the real one's going off into all these adventures and falling in love with an 8-year-old and all this horse shit. But it's like, well, wait a minute. How is the handmaiden making all these decisions then? Okay, just a thought. You can fucking comment and explain it to me, all right? What else? The pod race. I remember when I first saw this movie, it seemed like this pod race thing was insufferable, and it just took forever. But upon watching this movie this time around, I don't mind. In fact, to break kayfabe a little bit, this is the second time I've seen The Phantom Menace in this re-release. A week and change ago, I had lost my phone. I was in the process of getting a new one, and I couldn't do my review then. But I saw the movie again today. It's a matinee. And folks, this is like 6:50 at night. This, like, when we're doing this right now between me and you. It's about 6:30 p.m. and it's still bright and sunny here in Florida, okay, which is nice. What else? The whole thing with the yellow eyes guy and the emperor and all this horse shit, I watched some YouTube video on that. So that's the thing, right? He's like the trusted guy, but he's really the Dark Lord or whatever the fuck. I don't know. Samuel Jackson gets some good lines in. It seems like Samuel Jackson took great pride in his acting in this. Like, he's like, you know, they always come in two, the mentor and the protege. But which one did we kill? And like, Samuel Jackson took such great pride in his fucking little cameo in this thing, thinking he'd be the star of the next one, which he wasn't. What else? Oh, the guy, see, I never saw this movie, but I'm familiar with Willow. You are great. So that fellow, I didn't say little fellow, just that fellow is basically like a glorified cameo in this thing. Was he in either of the other two? But he's in this for like a minute. You know what I mean? I do find that interesting in some of these Star Wars films, Christ, when some of these characters come in for, you know, a cup of coffee, as they say, and then they're gone. Like, you think that they're going to be some big horseshit of a deal, and they're not. And that's kind of what it felt like with him. Okay? So, what else? I don't know. What can I fucking tell you? I like it. Is it perfect? No. It's not a perfect movie. I mean, obviously, with all these things going on, knowing he's going to make all these goddamn sequels, I'm kind of surprised, maybe you are too, that at this time, whenever they went into production, 97, 98, you kind of would think to save money and expedite things, they would have just gone ahead and filmed all three prequels together, right? But as far as I know, they did not. I mean, did they do that with the second and third one? Because they seem to, like, just trying to organize things. They seem to downplay Jar Jar in the second and third one based upon response from the angry asshole Star Wars fans at the time. I could be wrong on that. But it does seem like back in this era of Star Wars production, they were still making these movies and then waiting 2 or 3 years and then making another one, unless I'm forgetting something. So what can I say? I'm trying to think if I ever... Oh yeah, the whole Darth Vader as like a Christ baby, like he has no father. He is the Force, like he's the Force personified. The Force decided to come to life in the fucking image of a, you know, blonde-haired kid. And so he has no father. He's the virgin birth. Okay. But yet he's going to go to the dark side for a good portion of his life until basically the end of it. I don't know. I mean, it's like, so now we're supposed to accept that Darth Vader is like this messianistic character gone askew. You know what I mean? And how come his mother has like this kind of Hungarian accent? Like, it's just like I said, it's all over the fucking place. Like, and here's the thing, folks. I'm a nice white guy, okay? That's my hand in life. But I mean, you can tell that George Lucas, he sees the world through a white guy's eyes in 1999 or whatever the fuck. He was probably 45 or 50 at the time, because like everything different has like an accented voice. Oh, okay. So we need the mother of the virgin child. We'll give her a Hungarian voice. Okay. And we need these intergalactic trade Mongols. Okay. So give them a couple of like, give them an Asian accent, and give fucking Jar Jar a Caribbean accent. Like, it's all through the white guy's evil eyes. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I mean, it is what it is. But once you can kind of accept these flaws in the armor of this thing, it's kind of fun. So what can you do? I mean, it's happy horse shit. You know what I mean? It's sci-fi, whatever the fuck. And at the time, you know, people were so grateful that these movies were being made, and then everyone pissed all over it. And now I'm kind of retracting my piss. Like I'm saying, it's not as bad as I thought. In fact, here I am for the second time in 9 or 10 days seeing this thing. So what can I fucking tell you? Okay. So there you go. George Lucas, you are redeemed. Why don't you go make us some more Star Wars movies? Oh, gee whiz, you can't, because you sold everything to the mouse. So anyway, Mike Messier, I think it's good. I mean, I think some things just age with time. Some things you don't appreciate when you have them initially, and you kind of have to wait 20 fucking years or 25 years to understand things. And you know, some things remain a little bit flawed. Jar Jar, like I said, still a pain in the ass. But overall, it's fine. I mean, I did have one thing with the pod racing horse shit, like, you know, and that's kind of like the big thing halfway through this movie. There's so many, like, they have like tablets, like basically, like, this Star Wars movie was on the cusp of like predicting all this technology we'd have throughout the next 20 years or so, but they're basically watching the fucking thing on tablets. And I'm kind of like, well, where's the cameras that are following this race? But you do see that, like, the color commentator, two-headed guy, has these cameras near him. But are those cameras covering the race that close? And in the pod race, there's these people that are shooting, these sand guys or whatever are shooting at our little buddy there. And it's like, how is that legal? I mean, they're just accepting that this race is fucking corrupt. There's another thing I wanted to say, so I will if I can remember it. What the fuck? Oh yeah, it's just like you took the fucking Home Alone kid and you dropped him in the fucking middle of this Star Wars universe, which I think is kind of like, I think Lucas was thinking, hey, you know, if we have this character that everybody loves, Darth Vader, and we show him as a child and how he got to be where he was, and we just, you know, put Dennis the Menace or the fucking Home Alone kid or Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes. We just throw him in the middle of all this Star Wars shit. Everyone's going to love it. And I think that there was a little bit of like, you know, people didn't love it so much. You know what I mean? But I'm watching this Jake Lloyd kid now, and it seems like he's having a fucking blast, like he's having fun. And I think he's doing about as good a job as any 8 or 9-year-old actor could do, given the circumstance. But also, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to expect a child actor to carry a fucking, like, take the mantle of this major fucking franchise. And the fucker that came a few years later, the Hans Christopher or whatever the fuck his name is, didn't he turn into, did he turn into a drug addict or some such thing? What happened to him? But I mean, Natalie survived. I mean, she was okay with it. She did other movies. She didn't get pigeonholed, so what the fuck? But of course, she was a big star before this thing, too. What else? God and fuck. Just, you know, it's fun. But yeah, it's like, oh, there's certain things, like things that I find funny in the movie, like they're not stormtroopers, but there's these other fucking things. Like one of them says something and the other one says, Roger, Roger. Well, as far as I know, Roger, Roger is like an American truck driver thing, right? Isn't that like, you know, CB talk? So it's like a galaxy long ago in a galaxy far, far away, they used American truck driver lingo from the 1970s. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing with these Star Wars movies. And yes, in my Dune 2 thing, you know, I said the same type of thing, but it's like, these things are supposed to be in this galaxy far, far away where you have walking lizards and walking Chewbacca's and Ewoks and princesses and all this horse shit. But yet they say Roger, Roger, and they say yippee. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's interesting how in some fucking way our modern American bullshit carries over into a galaxy far, far fucking away, where they're saying Roger, Roger, this American truck driving lingo stuff in this galaxy that doesn't have trucks, you know, in the traditional sense, or it doesn't, well, maybe they fucking do, but they're just like sandmobiles or whatever the fuck. Do you get what I'm saying? It's just interesting how the sci-fi world and basically all movies, they can say it's some other universe, it's other this, but yet they all speak American English. Gee, that's fucking fascinating. How that can turn out. How'd that come out to be, folks? But then when I have seen a movie, and there was a movie a few months ago, not the Sasquatch Sunset, another one, where like the characters were speaking some, they called it a found language, like some bullshit language that made no sense, and you had to read subtitles at the bottom. That sucks too. You know what I mean? Like that's even worse. So I guess of the two options, I'd rather take the conceit of, yes, we know it's a galaxy far, far away, Mike, but these characters just happen to speak English without a fucking Australian accent or whatever the fuck, so you can understand them for your enjoyment and just have to go with it. So, I mean, I do appreciate that, but at the same time, I like to point it out. Okay, folks, that's it. Go to MikeMessier.com. You can buy all my books. Do everything I say. Buy my books. You can stand me on social if you want, or don't. And you can do everything I want. You can subscribe or not. Mike Messier.